It's a Friday and it's New Music Friday. I just finished listening to J. Cole's album, and there are some things I want to talk about that just came to me as I was listening to the album. We all know, if you have at least been following the rap industry, you would know about the rap beef and all of that, Drake, Kendrick Lamar, all that thing happening and what that led to and where it's at now. We all know J. Cole was somewhat involved in that, but he stepped away from it. And I feel he's stepping away from it is a very important bit for us in the way we live on the day to day, because a lot of us are always at points where we figure that we have to prove ourselves immediately. We feel we need to prove ourselves and we need to show our words. But sometimes that's just your pride talking. You need to silence your pride. When you silence your pride, what happens is once you silence it, you can figure out who you are without all the noises of different people trying to make you prove yourself in different ways. J. Cole could have proved himself and been the better rapper when it seemed like he needed to, but he did not. Instead, he waited for his time and took his time to be crafting what he was crafting all along. Silencing your pride is a very hard thing to do, but sometimes, most times actually, it is what you need to do in order for you to progress. Because silencing your pride means you do not feel challenged by things that are irrelevant to your growth and your process. You do not feel challenged by things that are not necessary for your own life. You choose what matters to you. And once you choose what matters to you, then that means you can also choose what will matter tomorrow and how you shape yourself and how you ready yourself for different scenarios and different situations. There are times when your pride can take over. Jacob's pride took over when he made somewhat a response, but then he always had a chance to take that back, and he did take that back and moved on from it entirely. Like, moving on from it entirely is something that's very hard for most of us, because we have to prove ourselves to this world. We have to show that I am still the greatest, I'm still capable of all this. And sometimes proving that is at a cost not only to you and your spirit, but to also others. I like this one bar from one of the songs which said, "Pride is a bitter pill, but do the right thing and swallow it." It's very bitter to swallow your pride, because sometimes your pride is what makes you stand. It's what makes you a hero. It's what makes you a standard for other people. It's what makes you the benchmark. And you having to swallow that and just put it on the side and then move on can be what seems costly, especially in a world where everyone just tries to prove who they are to the next person. But swallowing your pride will have its after effects. Like, swallowing that pill will have its after effects. One of the after effects is finding your silence, because finding your silence is what makes you then go back to your creativity. A lot of us are not silent. A lot of us don't like quiet times. Let's just be real about it. We don't like quiet times because it is only in silence where we face ourselves. Silence is like a mirror to us. It's what shows us where our minds wander off to when there is no input. And pride sometimes makes us have a lot of input, because everything that everyone says about us, about what we feel like we are, about where we feel like we belong, it all comes back to us. It all comes back to our minds because of the pride. And that pride is a lot of noise. And what that lot of noise does is it distracts us from our main purpose. It leads us in a way where it wants us to go. So when you silence your pride, you find your silence. Finding your silence looks like going back to your creativity, going back to the stories which were unfinished, going back to the things which you have always given yourself pride in doing in the first place, the things which you've always known yourself to be good at. Sometimes not things that you've known yourself to be good at always, but things that you were building. And you can go back and build those things. J. Cole has been on this wave of telling people how he's been crafting this album for 10 years, and it shows in his work. It shows that the distractions that were supposed to distract him did not distract him, and he went back and focused on his project and found his silence, found his creativity, found his passion again, and moved with it. That's what we need to do to ourselves sometimes. Just move with the silence when we find it, because it is in that silence where we find ourselves, where we find our creativity, where we find our passions, where we find bits and pieces of things that we've been missing from our identity, and we bring them back to ourselves, and we make them grow, we make them better, we make them show out a bit more. At the end of the day, your creations become what you are remembered for. I remember seeing that one tweet. I don't know how true it is or whether it's true or not, but I'll just take the essence of it, of Trevor Noah making the jokes at the Grammys and then making one about Kendrick Lamar being able to diss foreign light-skinned men, right? It was funny. It's a funny joke. I even laughed at it. And then someone replied to it and said, this is the moment that Kendrick Lamar realizes he's not going to be remembered as Kendrick Lamar, the artist, but as the guy who dissed Drake. I will remember J. Cole not as the guy who apologized amidst that rap beef, but as the guy who created all these albums and crafted them with such intent and purpose that he was even able to back down from his pride and come back and make his creations. His creations are what he will be remembered for. And your creations are what you will be remembered for, not the times that you stood up for pride that does not care about you in the first place, but being that person who goes back and makes their creations what they are remembered for. Tony Stark always made these suits, and what we remember him for. These suits being capable of honing all the power from the Infinity Stones, and then him making the ultimate sacrifice, which is himself at the end of the day, because of his creations, is what he is remembered for. And for us, our creations are what we will be remembered for. Bullying back the bully is not what we will be remembered for, but our creations. Michael Jordan had bullies back in high school. And when he faced one of his bullies, he did not bully her. He simply just reminded her of what they did to him before, and now him being remembered for his creations. If he had let pride take over him back in high school or back in those scenarios where he met his bullies again, he would have bullied them back. He would have done something about it, only to show, to assert dominance, to show that he is now an important person. But no, he lets his art be what he's remembered for. He lets his creations be what he's remembered for. And this should be the same in us, because you have a good contribution that matters to this world. You have a solid foundation. Your mind has something that you might not know about, but it needs to be shown to the world. And once you show this to the world, you will be remembered for that. You will be remembered for those creations. It is rare for us to be in scenarios where we remember people for defending something that was not true within themselves, but was only true within the scope of other people telling them who they are. We remember the people who were not only individualists, but stood for something and never let anything back them down from standing from that. Because once you stand for something and once you create on something, you become that type of person. You become a creator of that. And once you become the creator of that, your identity is not only tied to your creations, but your creations have an identity because of you. Whatever you spit out has an identity because of you, because you have expressed true authenticity and you've expressed yourself in the best way possible using your creations. And those creations are what you will be remembered for. Once you start making creations and once you start playing your own game, you start defining the rules on your own. You start making the rules. And once you make these rules, you cannot make rules where you lie to yourself. And once you start playing the game, it's a game where you cannot lie because it's simply the game you made. So the game you made and the game which you play needs you to honor the rules and the promises that you make to yourself and to the world, because this is how you will show up. So you will be held accountable in keeping your promises and making sure that you deliver and you tell the truth to yourself and not be a facade to the world or try to show the world a different person when you act in different ways. But once you start playing your game, you can then show yourself, you can then come out as true as a true person who keeps their own promises to themselves and then to their mission. Because distractions come and go in the premise of what I've said in the first parts of this video. Distractions come and go in the sense of things like, for an artist, the beefs, specific people saying specific things about you, people calling you a quitter, people it's all things that come in the way of your own creativity, and they try to distract you. Sometimes it's even someone else's work that distracts you in as much as it is good. It distracts you, tries to show you another way, tries to, sometimes you are working on a specific project and then you see different projects that are in line with that project, but are not specifically your own project, and they become distractions because they become other things that might try to feed into you. And when they're feeding into you, they come with different things. They come with sometimes new things that you might need to learn. They might come with new things that you do not even know about. And when all this is happening, it will distract you. And those distractions come. And when you focus on the distractions, when they go, you won't see that the distractions are gone because you keep on focusing on them. And they become pivotal moments in things that they were not meant to be relevant for in the first place. When distractions come and when pride comes and you need to swallow that pride, you need to come back and tell yourself you always have unfinished business, especially when you've started something. Always tell yourself you have unfinished business, and that business needs your authentic self to show up and finish that business. You cannot finish that business without showing up as your true authentic self. When something needs your pride to come out and be shown and be defended, tell yourself, I have my own creative unfinished business in a world that I define for myself, and I can simply move on from this because it's a distraction. It comes and goes, and it has come now, and I know it will go and be irrelevant, and I can move on from that with peace. So you sync with what syncs well with you. You move with what moves well with you. I always try to figure this out in the sense of when I'm writing my blogs, I get a lot of distractions because I am also a human being who is always on the internet. There are always people out there creating. I follow a lot of creators. I listen to a lot of creators' podcasts. I watch a lot of YouTube videos to try and just keep my creative mind alert and just see what other people are creating for the world as well. But what I want to never do and what I will never do is let that distract me from what I am currently creating. I remember when I was writing the blog on the IKEA effect about severance and DIY being the final form of love. I think a lot of people resonate with that, and I think you should read it as well. I was distracted by a lot of things. I was distracted by a lot of people telling me different thoughts on these specific subjects. And all these came and went. It took me a long time to come up with that blog, I think about 6 months. And that's because I was getting distracted by people telling me stuff about me reading about stuff. I remember even going and doing deep research into the IKEA effect. I was distracted, but once I came back, once I started figuring myself out and figuring my way out into this blog, that's when I went back and said, wait, where did I find the idea in the first place? And I figured I found the idea when I was watching Severance, the final episodes of season 2. I went back and rewatched those episodes just to find myself, just to find that silence again and make all this come together into my writing. And I was like, oh, that's the IKEA effect. This is how it works. So all these things that I've been learning all amount to this. And then I started writing again. I started feeling myself again when I was writing. I went into a bit of what they call the flow state, where I didn't feel like I was doing any work, but I was doing a lot of work. And when I put that piece out, I felt like I'd put out a piece of myself to give to the world with the true and truly inspired details of what everything meant to me in the sense of doing things yourself being the final form of love. And when I was talking about gifts, when I was talking about making up something, I was thinking of scenarios about me as well, about different people around me and how they have related with me in this case. And this made me so grateful for this creative process because then it meant something to me as an individual and also to the community that I'm around. So my pride would have been something like, sure that you can expand this topic to as many dimensions as possible, talk about different things, but instead I went back, found my silence, focused, and I wrote something that I felt was truly meaningful as well. I just wanted to use this as an example, as a reflection of how it can apply again to myself. And I feel like if you are on the same wavelength of creation, you might be getting distracted, especially in a world where we have access to a lot of people. Some people who we do not deserve to have access to, actually, or some things which we do not have deserve to have access to, but just make that pride go away for a bit and focus on you, find your silence, find your creativity, and let your creativity drive you through to make creations which you will be remembered for, and make your creations be defined by you, because everyone else's definitions are just interpretations of what your work will be. That's it. Make good decisions today. Stay positive, make good decisions, and catch you in the next one.